Social Intelligence. How to Speak Smart. You are listening to an audiobook on Unlock Your Success Habits, where your wisdom is always respected, wishing you success and an abundance of positive energy every single day. There is a quiet pain that so many people carry. They walk into a room, open their mouths and instantly feel regret. Words stumble, tones fall flat, stories stretch too long, or cut too short. They replay conversations later in their heads, wishing they had said the right thing, the clever thing, the brave thing. They smile on the outside, but inside they whisper, "Why can I not speak the way I think? Why do my words never match my heart?" This pain is heavier than most will admit, because communication is not just about words, it is about belonging. When your voice feels weak, your soul feels invisible. And yet, what if I told you that speaking smart is not about being the loudest in the room, not about having the biggest vocabulary, and not about memorizing clever lines? Speaking smart is about emotional intelligence. It is about sensing the room, reading the subtle cues, knowing when to speak and when to listen, when to challenge and when to comfort. It is about shaping your words like arrows that pierce through the noise and land in hearts. The gift of speaking smart is not simply sounding intelligent. It is about creating connections so powerful that people remember how you made them feel long after your words fade. This book is not theory. It is not a list of tricks to manipulate people. It is a deep, practical journey into the art of communication, rooted in human truth. By the end, you will not just know what to say. You will know how to embody presence that makes people lean closer when you speak. You will learn the psychological truths behind social intelligence and how they shape every conversation you enter. You will uncover why some people light up rooms with their words while others remain shadows, and how you can step into that light with authenticity, not pretense. The core philosophy is simple. Words are never enough. Words without emotional intelligence are empty shells. True speaking power comes from alignment. When your presence, your tone, your intention, and your message all echo the same truth. People are not persuaded by perfect grammar or fancy phrases. They are persuaded when they feel you. That is what it means to speak smart. It is not about impressing people. It is about impacting them. So I invite you into this journey. If you stay until the end, you will walk away with more than tips. You will carry a new identity. You see conversations not as battles to win, but as bridges to build. You will find your voice not in imitation of others, but in the deep, unshakable confidence of who you are. And once you learn to speak with emotional intelligence, you will realize this truth. Every conversation is an opportunity to change a life, including your own. Chapter 1. Finding Your True Voice, the Foundation of Speaking Smart. There is a moment in every person's life when they realize that the way they have been speaking is not the way they want to be heard. Perhaps it happens in a meeting, when someone else confidently shares an idea you were too afraid to voice. Perhaps it happens in a conversation with a friend, when you realize your words did not reflect what your heart wanted to say. Or perhaps it happens in silence, when you lie awake at night, replaying the words you wished you had spoken, but never did. This moment of recognition can sting, but it is also sacred, because it is the beginning of finding your true voice. For many, the struggle begins with fear. Fear of judgment, fear of rejection, fear of saying the wrong thing and being misunderstood. This fear builds walls inside the mind, blocking words before they even escape the lips. It convinces you that silence is safer, that invisibility is protection. But the truth is the opposite. Silence often deepens the loneliness. Invisibility often intensifies the pain. When you do not speak, the world cannot know you, and when the world cannot know you, you begin to believe that you do not matter.
Why do so many people get stuck here?
Because they confuse their voice with performance. They think that to speak well is to entertain, to impress, To dazzle, they compare themselves to the charismatic speaker who commands a room, the eloquent storyteller who never stumbles, the quick-witted conversationalist who always has the perfect response, and in comparison, they shrink. They tell themselves, "I am not like that. I will never be like that." But speaking smart is not about performance. It is about presence. True voice is not the one that imitates others. It is the one that reveals you. The shift comes when you realize that speaking smart is not a skill you acquire from the outside, but a truth you uncover from the inside. Every human being already carries a unique rhythm, tone, and style of expression, but years of fear, criticism, and social conditioning bury it. You learn to speak in ways that please others, hide your passion, or protect you from pain. In doing so, you lose the raw, unfiltered essence of your own voice. The journey of speaking smart is not about adding layers of polish. It is about peeling back the layers until your authentic self shines through. Consider the story of a man who worked in a corporate office, quietly doing his job. He was competent, reliable, and respected, but invisible. In meetings, he would sit silently while others dominated conversations. He believed his ideas were not valuable enough, his words not polished enough. One day, his manager asked him privately, "Why do you never speak up? I know you see things others do not." That question pierced him. He realized his silence was not humility. It was fear. He began practicing speaking small truths in meetings, even when his voice trembled. Over time, people leaned in because his words carried depth. His true voice emerged, not by imitating louder colleagues, but by daring to reveal his own perspective. Or think of a woman who had always been told she was too emotional. As a child, when she spoke with passion, people laughed. As an adult, when she tried to speak with authority, she felt fake. For years, she muted herself, believing intelligence meant detachment. But when she finally embraced her natural passion and allowed her emotions to infuse her words, something shifted. People began to connect with her deeply. Her tears in a speech moved colleagues. Her laughter and conversations created bonds. Her too emotional voice became her superpower because it was real. The psychology of communication explains why authenticity is so powerful. People are wired with mirror neurons which allow us to feel what others feel. When you speak with authenticity, your emotion resonates in others. When you speak with fear or pretense, that also resonates. This is why audiences feel bored when a speaker is disconnected, and why they feel electrified when a speaker is fully present. Your voice carries more than sound. It carries your state of being. Speaking smart begins not with choosing the right words, but with choosing to be fully yourself. But authenticity alone is not enough. You must also align it with awareness. Emotional intelligence is the compass that guides your voice into connection. It is sensing the atmosphere of the room, reading the body language of the listener, adjusting your tone without betraying your truth. Imagine a sailor who knows the power of the wind, but ignores the direction of the current. His boat will drift aimlessly. In the same way, authenticity without awareness may express truth, but it may not connect. Speaking smart means weaving your authentic voice into the fabric of the moment, so it lands where it is most needed. Here is where many stumble. They confuse speaking authentically with speaking carelessly. They believe I am just being real, when in truth they are being reckless. Honesty without empathy wounds. Passion without wisdom overwhelms. To speak smart is to hold both truths. To remain authentic while also attuned. It is not about censoring yourself, but about shaping your words so that they build bridges instead of burning them. This balance is the art of social intelligence in communication. How do you begin this journey? First, by listening to yourself. Notice the moments when your voice feels alive versus when it feels forced. Pay attention to the words you regret, because they were not true to you, and the ones you treasure because they carried your heart. Then begin small. Speak your truth in safe spaces. Share your perspective in low-stakes conversations. Let your voice tremble. It is proof you are alive. Over time, the trembling gives way to strength. Strength gives way to presence. Resetting your voice also requires forgiving the past. Many people carry wounds from times they were silenced, mocked, or dismissed. Those memories become chains that choke every future attempt to speak. But remember, your voice is not defined by one cruel comment or one painful moment. The fact that you are still here, still seeking to speak, proves that your voice carries resilience. Forgive those who muted you, not because they deserve it, but because your voice deserves freedom. I want you to imagine a version of yourself, 1 year from now, walking into a room with calm confidence, speaking with clarity, connecting effortlessly. People turn toward you, not because you are the loudest, but because your words carry weight. That version of you already exists, waiting beneath the layers of fear and doubt. Every step you take toward your true voice brings that version closer to reality. Here is my personal comment to you. If you are listening this far, chances are you are tired of hiding. You are tired of silence, the regret, the endless replay of unsaid words. You are ready to be heard. I want to tell you this. Your voice matters, not because it is perfect, but because it is yours. Do not wait until you feel ready. Do not wait until the fear is gone. Speak anyway, because every word you dare to share is a step closer to the person you were born to be. If you found this chapter meaningful, take a moment to reflect on one conversation where you wish you had spoken differently. Then imagine how you would speak if you honored your true voice. Write it down, speak it aloud, share it with someone you trust. And if this message resonates with you, share it with others who need to hear that their voice matters. Subscribe to this journey, because in the next chapter we will explore one of the most magnetic forces in communication: the power of listening before you speak. Chapter 2. The Art of Listening. Why silence speaks louder than words. There is a secret about great communicators that most people never see. They are not great because of the words they speak. They are great because of the silence they keep. While others rush to be heard, they slow down to hear. While others compete for attention, they create space for others to feel understood. This is the paradox of communication. The smartest speakers are first the deepest listeners. If you want to learn how to speak smart, you must begin not with your mouth, but with your ears. Think of the last time you felt truly heard. Perhaps it was a friend who sat with you when your world was falling apart. Perhaps it was a mentor who looked you in the eye and said, "Tell me more." Or perhaps it was a stranger who nodded gently as you poured out your heart. That moment stayed with you, not because of what they said, but because of how they listened. When someone listens fully, they send you a message louder than any words you matter. Your story matters. I see you. And now think of the opposite. Think of the conversations where you tried to explain yourself, but the other person interrupted, corrected, or drifted into their own stories. You walked away unheard, unseen, perhaps even smaller than before. That sting lingers, and it teaches you to close your heart. Words without listening do not build bridges. They build walls, and every wall makes connection harder. Why do so many people fail at listening? Because they are not really listening. They are waiting for their turn to speak, waiting to insert their point, waiting to win the conversation. Their ears are open, but their mind is busy rehearsing a reply. They think they are communicating, but, in truth, they are performing. Listening is not waiting to speak. Listening is setting aside your agenda long enough to receive another's soul. It requires humility, patience, and presence, the very qualities most people avoid because they feel uncomfortable. The psychology of listening reveals why it is so rare. Human beings are wired for ego protection. We fear losing control, appearing ignorant, or being vulnerable. So, we interrupt, defend, and dominate. But true listening dismantles the ego. It requires you to step into another's world, even if it challenges your own. This is why listening feels risky. It is surrender. Yet, it is in that surrender that the deepest connections are born. The shift comes when you realize that listening is not passive, it is active. It is not silence born of absence, but silence born of presence. Active listening means leaning in with your body, giving cues with your eyes, nodding with intention, asking clarifying questions that say, "I want to understand," not just respond. Active listening transforms ordinary conversations into sacred spaces. It makes people feel safe enough to reveal the truth behind their words. And when people feel safe, they open up in ways that allow you to speak into their lives with power. Consider the story of a young leader in a fast-growing company. At first, he believed leadership meant having answers. He filled meetings with his voice, offering strategies, solutions, directions. His team respected his knowledge, but felt distant from him. Over time, he noticed morale dropping. One day, he tried something different. Instead of speaking first, he asked, "What do you think?" and listened. At first, his team hesitated, unused to being heard. But slowly they began to share. Ideas flowed, energy returned. Trust deepened. His leadership shifted, not because he found smarter words, but because he created smarter silence. Or think of a mother raising a teenage son. Every conversation felt like an argument. Every attempt at guidance met with resistance. One evening, instead of correcting him, she asked, "Tell me how you feel," and sat quietly. At first he shrugged, suspicious, but as the silence stretched, his defenses crumbled. He began to speak, hesitant at first, then pouring out frustration she never imagined. For the first time she understood his world. And because she listened, her words later carried weight. Her voice gained authority, not through volume, but through empathy. Listening also gives you an incredible advantage in social intelligence. People reveal more in silence than they do in speech. A glance away, a shift of posture, a hesitation before answering. All these are windows into truth. If you are too busy speaking, you miss them. But if you train yourself to listen beyond words, you gain insights others overlook. You begin to read emotions, sense unspoken needs, and respond with precision. This is what makes conversations magnetic. When people feel that you hear not just their words, but their heart. But here is the danger. Listening without discernment can make you a sponge absorbing everything without filter. To listen smartly, you must balance openness with wisdom. Not every story deserves your agreement. Not every complaint deserves your energy. Listening does not mean losing yourself. It means anchoring yourself so deeply that you can hold another's truth without drowning in it. It means discerning when to remain silent and when to speak with clarity. The practice of listening requires discipline. Begin by slowing down. Resist the urge to interrupt even when you think you know the point. Allow pauses to breathe. Silence in conversation is not failure. It is space where truth gathers. Next, train your attention. Put away distractions. Look into the eyes of the person speaking. Give them the dignity of your presence. Finally, respond, not with judgment, but with curiosity. Ask, "Can you tell me more?" These simple practices transform not only how you listen, but also how people feel in your presence. Listening also changes you. When you learn to hear others deeply, you begin to hear yourself more clearly. You notice your own emotions, your own patterns, your own inner voice. Self-listening is the foundation of self-mastery. If you cannot listen to your own truth, you will always project noise onto others. But when you listen within your words, gain authenticity, they stop being rehearsed performances and become genuine reflections of who you are. I want you to reflect now. Who in your life needs your listening more than your advice? Who needs your silence more than your solutions? Perhaps it is a child, a friend, a partner, or even yourself. Imagine the gift you could give simply by being fully present, by holding their story without rushing to fix it. That gift could change a relationship more than 1,000 clever words. Here is my personal comment to you. Stop trying to be impressive. Start trying to be present. People will forget most of your words, but they will never forget how you made them feel. And the best way to make someone feel valued is to listen not with impatience, not with pretense, but with your whole being. This is the foundation of speaking smart, listening until the other person feels seen. If you felt this chapter resonate, take action today. In your next conversation, speak less, ask more. Lean in. Listen until the other person's eyes soften, until their shoulders relax, until they know they matter. Then watch how your own words, when they finally come, land with power instead of noise. If this message touched you, share it with someone who needs to hear that silence is not weakness, but strength, and subscribe, because in the next chapter we will dive into another pillar of smart speaking. The power of asking the right questions that unlock doors others did not even know were there. Chapter 3. The power of questions unlocking hearts and minds. Every conversation is a doorway. Some doors swing open with ease, leading you into laughter, truth, and intimacy. Others remain closed, guarded by silence, pride, or fear. The difference is rarely in the speaker's eloquence, it is in their questions. A well-placed question is more powerful than the most brilliant statement. It can pierce defenses, ignite curiosity, and open paths to connection that no speech could ever achieve. To speak smart is to ask smart, and to ask smart is to master the art of questions. Think of the conversations that changed your life. Were they filled with lectures, or were they filled with questions? Chances are it was a question that shifted you. Someone asked, "What do you really want?" Or "Why are you afraid?" Or "What would you do if you knew you could not fail?" And suddenly your perspective widened. Questions have the power to rearrange the furniture of the mind, creating space where new truths can settle. Statements tell, questions invite, and people respond more deeply to an invitation than to an instruction. Yet most people waste their questions. They ask out of habit, not intention. "How are you?" becomes meaningless script. "What's up?" becomes a placeholder for real connection. People answer with who autopilot responses. "I'm fine, nothing much," and the conversation dies. To speak smart is to resist autopilot. It is to craft questions that dig beneath the surface, that reveal more than what someone is willing to share at first glance. True questions are keys, and every key can open a door if you dare to turn it. Why do so many people fail to ask powerful questions? Because questions require vulnerability. To ask is to admit you do not know. To ask is to risk hearing an answer you cannot control. Many people prefer to assert, to advise, to declare, because it keeps them in the position of authority. But authority does not build intimacy. Curiosity does. When you release the need to control the conversation and instead surrender to curiosity, you step into the realm of real connection. The psychology behind this is profound. Human beings are wired for storytelling. We want to share, but only when we feel safe. Questions create safety by signaling interest. They tell the other person, "I care enough about you to invite your truth." When the brain perceives genuine curiosity, it lowers its defenses. The stress response eases and trust begins to grow. This is why interrogations fail, but gentle questions succeed, because the intention behind the question matters more than the words themselves. Consider a young man on a date who spends the entire evening trying to impress. He talks about his job, his hobbies, his goals, filling every silence with his accomplishments. At the end of the night, his date, smiles politely but feels no connection. Now imagine instead he asks, "What makes you feel most alive?" and listens deeply. She shares a story about her childhood, her dreams, her fears. Suddenly the evening becomes a tapestry of vulnerability and discovery. The difference was not in his words but in his questions. Or think of a manager leading a struggling team. One approach is to lecture them. "We need to work harder. We need better results. You must commit." This creates pressure, but not passion. Another approach is to ask what obstacles are draining your energy. What would make you feel proud of your work again? What support do you need from me? These questions transform the atmosphere. Instead of feeling attacked, the team feels engaged. Solutions arise not from commands, but from conversations. Asking the right questions also sharpens your social intelligence. When you ask, you learn. When you learn, you adapt. And when you adapt, you connect. Every question you ask adds to your map of the human heart. Over time, you begin to see patterns. What motivates people? What frightens them? What excites them? This insight makes your future words more precise, more relevant, more magnetic. Questions are not only about understanding others, they are about equipping yourself with wisdom to speak more powerfully. But here lies the challenge. Not all questions open doors. Some questions close them. Questions that are too invasive, too judgmental, or too self-serving make people retreat. Art is in timing and tone. A question asked with curiosity feels like an invitation. The same question asked with suspicion feels like an attack. For example, asking, "Why did you do that?" can trigger defensiveness, but asking what was going through your mind when that happened can spark openness. The difference is subtle but transformative. To practice the art of questions, begin by shifting your mindset. Move from interrogation to exploration. Instead of asking to confirm your assumptions, to uncover their truth. Instead of asking to fix, ask to understand. This requires patience. It means resisting the urge to jump in with advice. It means sitting in the mystery of not knowing, trusting that the question itself will guide the conversation deeper. The most powerful questions are often the simplest. What matters most to you right now? What are you afraid of losing? What do you dream about when no one is watching? These are not complicated, but they touch the core of human experience. They bypass the surface and reach the heart. And when you reach the heart, you open doors no force could unlock. Even in everyday life, you can transform conversations through intentional questions. Instead of asking your child, "How was school?" which invites the predictable, fine, ask, "What was the best part of your day? What made you laugh today?" Instead of asking a colleague, "Busy day," ask, "What project are you most excited about right now?" These small shifts breathe life into ordinary exchanges, turning routine into relationship. I want you to imagine yourself in your next important conversation. Picture yourself not as a performer, but as an explorer. Your role is not to impress, but to discover. Let curiosity guide you. Ask, pause, and listen. Watch as doors begin to open, as walls begin to crumble, as trust begins to grow. Then, when you finally speak, your words will carry the weight of having first heard theirs. That is the secret. Questions make your voice more powerful because they prove your heart is not only for yourself. Here is my personal comment to you. If you are still here, you already sense that the smartest people are not those who have all the answers, but those who ask the best questions. So I challenge you today in your very next conversation. Ask one question you would normally avoid. Ask the question that feels risky, that feels vulnerable, that invites truth, and then remain silent long enough to hear the answer fully. That single act may change the entire relationship. This chapter moved. You share it with someone who needs to rediscover the art of asking. Leave a comment with the most powerful question you have ever been asked. And do not forget to subscribe, because in the next chapter, we will explore a truth that magnifies every conversation. How your body speaks louder than your words, and how mastering nonverbal intelligence can make you unforgettable. Chapter 4. The Unspoken Language. Mastering the power of body and presence. Long before words were ever written, long before alphabets were carved into stone, human beings spoke with their bodies. A glance, a gesture, a posture, all were signals of intense safety or threat. Our ancestors survived not by listening to words, but by reading what was unsaid. Today, we live in a world overflowing with speech, yet the truth remains: the body speaks louder than the mouth. To speak smart, you must first master the language that never lies, the language of presence. Think of the last time someone told you they were fine, but their eyes were clouded, their shoulders slumped. You knew they were not fine. Or recall a moment when a leader assured the team with confident words, but his nervous fidgeting betrayed his doubt. We know instinctively that words can deceive, but bodies often reveal. This is why communication experts agree most of our message is carried not by what we say, but by how we say it. And yet so many neglect this unspoken language, relying only on words while their body contradicts them. Why do people get stuck here? Because they underestimate presence. They believe persuasion is in arguments, charisma is in clever phrasing, authority is in vocabulary. They ignore the subtle but powerful cues, eye contact, posture, tone, space, that shape how every word lands. As a result, they may speak truth, but fail to be believed. They may speak wisdom, but fail to inspire. Their message falls flat, not because it lacks content, but because it lacks congruence. The shift happens when you understand that your body is not separate from your voice. It is your voice. Every movement, every pause, every breath amplifies or undermines your words. When your body aligns with your message, people feel coherence. They trust you not because you argued well, but because everything about you echoed truth. But when your body contradicts your words, even the most eloquent speech dissolves into suspicion. Presence, not phrasing, is the foundation of trust. Consider the story of a young teacher who struggled to control her classroom. She spent hours preparing brilliant lessons, but her students ignored her. She thought her words were the problem, so she spoke louder, explained longer, pleaded harder. Nothing worked. Then a mentor pointed out her posture. She slouched, avoided eye contact, and stood in corners, as if she wanted to disappear. Without realizing it, her body was telling the students she had no authority. She began practicing small shifts, standing tall, grounding her feet, looking her students in the eye before speaking. The transformation was immediate. Her words had not changed, but her presence had. Suddenly the room listened. Or think of a man in business negotiations. He prepared data, rehearsed arguments, polished slides. But when the moment came, he hunched over his laptop, spoke in a rushed monotone, and avoided direct gaze. His clients nodded politely, but later declined the deal. Contrast this with another negotiator who began the meeting with open posture, leaned back in calm confidence, allowed pauses to breathe, and smiled with genuine warmth. His message was not just in his data, but in his body's quiet assurance. His words became persuasive because his presence carried conviction. The psychology behind nonverbal communication is powerful. The human brain processes body language faster than words. Within milliseconds of seeing someone, we register their posture, expressions, and movements. This unconscious reading shapes our judgment before words even begin. A confident stance signals safety. A warm smile signals openness. A furrowed brow signals tension. Our bodies constantly broadcast signals and others constantly interpret them. Ignore this is to leave half of communication in the dark. But here is the deeper truth. Nonverbal language is not about manipulation. It is not about memorizing gestures or faking smiles. It is about alignment. When you are nervous but pretend to be calm, your body leaks microsignals of fear. When you do not believe your own words, your eyes betray doubt. Real presence comes not from acting but from congruence. When what you think, feel, and say are in harmony, emotional intelligence is the bridge that creates this harmony. How do you cultivate this alignment? Begin with awareness. Notice your own body in conversations. Do your shoulders tighten when you are afraid? Do your hands fidget when you are uncertain? Do you cross your arms when you feel defensive? These habits are not flaws, they are signals. By observing them, you gain control. Next, practice grounding. Before speaking, take a deep breath, plant your feet, and allow your body to settle. This simple act centers your presence, making your words flow with stability. Another practice is intentional eye contact. Eyes are windows of trust. Too little eye contact signals insecurity. Too much feels aggressive. The art lies in balance, looking into someone's eyes long enough to connect, then gently shifting to avoid pressure. Pair this with open gestures. Uncross your arms, face the person directly, lean slightly forward to show engagement. These small adjustments magnify your presence far beyond the content of your words, and do not underestimate the power of silence. Pausing after a sentence gives your words gravity. A moment of stillness before responding shows you are listening. Silence in communication is not weakness, it is punctuation. It tells people your voice is steady enough to wait. This patience communicates more strength than hurried speech ever could. Imagine two leaders addressing their teams after a crisis. The first rushes in, speaks rapidly, avoids eye contact, and floods the room with information. His words may be correct, but his energy spreads panic. The second leader enters calmly, stands tall, scans the room with quiet assurance, and begins with a pause. Even before she speaks, the room feels steadier. When she finally says, "We will get through this," her words carry weight, not because they are unique, but because her body declared them before her mouth did. Here is my personal comment to you. Presence is a gift you can give without speaking a single word. People will remember less of what you said and more of how you stood, how you looked at them, how you made them feel. If you want your words to land, align them with your body. If you want to be heard, let your presence speak before your voice does. So here is your challenge. In your next conversation, focus less on what you will say and more on how you will show up. Stand tall, breathe deeply, look into their eyes, and let silence become part of your speech. Watch how the atmosphere shifts. Watch how your words suddenly carry more power. Then reflect. Was it the words that changed, or was it you? If this chapter gave you clarity, share it with someone who hides behind words but has yet to discover their presence. Leave a comment about one nonverbal cue you will begin to practice consciously, and subscribe, because in the next chapter we will dive into another truth that defines smart speaking, how emotions shape your voice, and how emotional control can turn chaos into connection. Chapter 5. The Emotional Current. How feelings shape your voice and your words. Every word we speak rides on a current, and that current is emotion. You can dress your sentences with eloquence, polish them with vocabulary, and rehearse them until perfect. But if the emotion beneath them is weak, your message dies the moment it leaves your lips. Emotion is not decoration. Emotion is the electricity that gives your words life. To speak smart, you must master this current, because it can either illuminate your conversations or burn them to ashes. Think of a time when someone shouted, "I am not angry." You knew instantly they were angry, because of the words, but because of the heat charging through them. Or recall a time when someone said, "I love you," but their tone was flat and distracted. You doubted their sincerity, not because of the statement, but because the emotion was absent. People may hear your words, but they bear your emotions. and often what they feel speaks louder than what you say. Why do emotions hold such power? Because human beings are wired with mirror neurons, which allow us to feel what others feel. When you speak with passion, that passion sparks in your listener. When you speak with fear, fear echoes back at you. When you speak with joy, joy multiplies in the room. Communication is not a transfer of information, it is a transfer of state. Every time you open your mouth, you are not just sharing ideas, you are transmitting energy. And yet, this is where most people stumble. They believe intelligence in speaking means stripping away emotion, sounding rational, detached, in control. They fear that showing feeling will make them weak, unprofessional. But in trying to remove emotion, they remove connection. They may impress the mind, but fail to touch the heart. The smartest voices are not those that hide emotion, but those that channel it with clarity. Emotional control does not mean suppression. It means directing your emotional current so that it amplifies your message instead of drowning it. Consider a leader facing her team during layoffs. If she speaks with robotic calm, her words may sound efficient, but will feel cold. If she lets her sadness consume her, she may collapse into despair, leaving the team hopeless. But if she grounds herself, acknowledges her grief, and speaks with steady compassion, her tears soft yet her voice firm, she creates trust. Her emotion is not weakness, it is evidence of her humanity. People will follow her, not because she is flawless, but because she is real and resilient. Or think of a speaker at a wedding toast. One version he reads stiffly from a note card listing achievements and memories, his tone flat, the audience claps politely. Another version he speaks from his heart, his voice trembling with love, his laughter spilling out in shared joy. The audience leans in, tears glisten, laughter ripples. Both speeches contain similar words, but one contained emotional current, and that is what made it unforgettable. The psychology of emotional communication reveals an important truth. Emotions are contagious. This is why a single anxious person can infect an entire meeting with tension, or a single joyful person can lift an entire room. Your emotional state is not private. It leaks through your tone, your rhythm, your expression. If you do not learn to master it, it masters you. To speak smart is to become aware of the emotional current flowing through you, and then choose how to direct it. So how do you master this current? First, through awareness. Notice what emotion sits in your body before you speak. Are you rushing into a conversation with frustration simmering? Are you carrying anxiety in your chest? Pause. Acknowledge it. You cannot control what you will not admit. Awareness creates the space for choice. Second, practice regulation. Regulation is not suppression. It is the art of channeling your emotion into strength. Anger can become conviction. Fear can become alertness. Sadness can become compassion. Joy can become inspiration. The same emotion that could derail your message can also empower it if you choose to direct it. Take anger, for example. Uncontrolled, it burns bridges, but channeled, it becomes fuel for justice, power, and courage. The difference lies not in the emotion itself, but in your mastery of it. Third, align your tone with your intention. If you want to inspire, let your tone rise with energy. If you want to reassure, slow down, soften your pace, breathe calm into your words. If you want to challenge, ground your voice. Speak firmly, leave pauses that demand thought. People may not remember every word, but they will remember how your voice made them feel. And when your tone matches your message, your words sink deeper. Imagine a parent guiding a child. The child has made a mistake. If the parent shouts in uncontrolled anger, the child shrinks into fear, learning nothing but avoidance. If the parent suppresses anger and speaks in cold detachment, the child feels distance, not love. But if the parent acknowledges frustration, then speaks with steady firmness. Wrapped in care, the child feels both accountability and security. The lesson lands because the emotion was guided, not ignored. Emotion also fuels storytelling, one of the most powerful tools in communication. Facts inform, but stories transform. And stories live not in logic, but in feeling. When you tell a story, you invite listeners into your emotions, your fear, your triumph, your wonder. They step into your shoes, feel your heartbeat, taste your victory. That is why the greatest communicators are also great storytellers. They do not just share data, they share themselves. But here lies the danger: emotion without awareness can overwhelm. A speaker who weeps uncontrollably may drown their message in pity. A leader who explodes in rage may shatter trust. A friend who dramatizes every word may exhaust others. To speak smart, you must find the balance, letting your emotion be felt without letting it take control. Emotion is a servant, not a master. Here is my personal comment to you. Do not fear your feelings. Your emotions are not your enemy. They are your amplifier. The world does not need colder words. The world needs words alive with truth, compassion, courage, and joy. When you speak, let people feel your heart, but also let them feel your steadiness. That balance is where power lives. So here is your challenge. Before your next important conversation, pause for 1 full minute. Ask yourself, what emotion do I carry right now? What emotion do I want to transmit? Breathe until the two align. Then speak. Watch how your words infused with chosen emotion. Cut through the noise and touch something deeper. If this chapter resonated with you, share it with someone who hides their feeling behind a mask. Someone who needs to remember that the voice is not just a tool of thought, but a channel of the soul. And subscribe, because in the next chapter we will explore another secret of speaking smart, the power of storytelling, and how narratives can bind strangers into tribes and turn ordinary messages into unforgettable movements. Chapter 6. The Storyteller's Gift. Turning words into worlds. Since the dawn of fire, when our ancestors gathered in caves with shadows dancing on stone walls, humanity has been telling stories. Before we had books, before we had theories, we had tales of hunts, of storms, of victories, of love. Storytelling was never just entertainment, it was survival. It carried lessons across generations, preserved identity, and gave people a sense of belonging. To this day, the human mind is wired not for data, but for narrative. Facts are quickly forgotten, but stories lodge in memory, shaping belief and behavior long after the moment ends. If you want to speak smart, you must learn the storyteller's gift. The ability to transform ordinary words into worlds that others can enter. Think about the last time you heard a powerful speaker. Do you remember their statistics, their bullet points, their conclusions, or do you remember the story they told? The personal struggle, the moment of failure, the spark of hope. Stories are sticky because they attach emotion to information. They give context to ideas, flesh to philosophy, heartbeat to logic. Without story, words remain dry. With story, they become water that seeps into thirsty hearts. Why then do so many people avoid storytelling? Because they believe their lives are not interesting enough. They imagine stories must be grand, dramatic, filled with extraordinary events. But the truth is, the most powerful stories are not about extraordinary lives. They are but ordinary moments told with honesty. A child's question, a mistake at work, a walk in the rain. These simple events, when shared with authenticity, resonate deeply because they reflect universal human experience. Storytelling is not about impressing, it is about connecting. The psychology of storytelling explains this resonance. When we hear a story, our brains release oxytocin, the hormone of empathy. We begin to imagine ourselves in the storyteller's shoes. Our defenses lower, our attention sharpens, our emotions awaken. Story bypasses the critical mind and speaks directly to the emotional core. This is why advertisements rely on stories, why leaders inspire with stories, why friendships deepen through stories. We may argue with logic, but we rarely argue with lived experience wrapped in narrative. Consider the difference between a leader who says we must innovate to survive and one who shares. I once watched a company much like ours collapse because they clung to the past. The workers were brilliant, the product was strong, but they feared change. I still remember walking through the empty building years later, hearing echoes of what could have been. I never want us to face that fate. Which message stays with you? The story plants the idea in your imagination, making it unforgettable. Or imagine a teacher explaining resilience. She could say resilience means adapting to challenges and persisting despite difficulties. The students would nod and forget, but if she shares, "When I was a teenager, my family lost our home. For weeks I studied under a streetlight at night because we had no electricity. I wanted to give up, but I told myself, if I can just finish this exam, maybe tomorrow will be brighter." That decision changed my life. Now, resilience is not a definition, it is a living image. The shift comes when you see your life, not as a collection of random events, but as a treasure chest of stories waiting to be told. Every struggle, every triumph, every mistake carries a seed of wisdom. When you share these seeds through story, you invite others to grow alongside you. This requires vulnerability because storytelling is not about perfection, it is about honesty. The stories that move people are rarely those where the hero never fails, but those where the hero stumbles, learns, and rises again. To master storytelling, you must pay attention to structure. Every story has three essential beats: the struggle, the turning point, and the transformation. Without struggle, there is no tension. Without turning point, there is no movement. Without transformation, there is no meaning. You do not need to exaggerate or dramatize, simply reveal the truth of your struggle. Show the moment where something shifted and how it changed you. That simple rhythm is enough to captivate any listener. But storytelling is not just about speaking, it is about sensing. The best storytellers read their audience. They adjust their pace, emphasize the details that resonate, shorten or expand depending on the room's energy. They know when to pause, when to let silence hang, when to let laughter breathe. They do not force the story. They live it again in the telling, inviting others to live it with them. Imagine yourself standing before an audience. You begin with a fact. Stress affects productivity. Eyes glaze over. Then you shift. Last year I woke up one morning unable to move my body. The doctor said it was burnout. I thought I was strong, but I was breaking. Suddenly the room is awake. They lean in. Not for data, but for humanity. As you share your recovery, your lessons, your hope, you offer not just knowledge, but companionship. Your story whispers you are not alone. That is the gift of storytelling. Yet here lies the danger: storytelling can be abused. Some use stories to manipulate, to dramatize beyond truth, to play with emotions without integrity. This erodes trust. A story without authenticity is performance, and performance eventually collapses. To speak smart is not to act, but to reveal. Your stories do not need to be perfect. They need to be true. People can forgive imperfection, they cannot forgive dishonesty. So, how do you begin? Start by collecting your moments. Reflect on times you learned, failed, loved, or changed. Write them down. Do not judge their size. What matters is the emotion they carry. Then practice telling them first to yourself, then to others. Notice what details make eyes widen or soften. Refine not to polish away truth, but to highlight it more clearly. Over time you will discover that your life is already full of stories waiting for your courage to share them. Here is my personal comment to you. Stop underestimating your life. Do not say I have no stories. You do. Every scar is a story. Every joy is a story. Every dream is a story. The question is not whether you have stories, but whether you are brave enough to tell them, and when you do, you will discover something extraordinary. Your story is not just yours. It belongs to everyone who hears it, because it awakens their own hidden stories. So here is your challenge. In the next conversation, you have resist the urge to prove yourself with facts. Instead, share a story. Tell about a time you struggled, a lesson you learned, to dream. You hold, speak not to impress, but to connect. Watch how the energy shifts, how the atmosphere warms, how the bond deepens. Then reflect. Was it your cleverness that made the difference? Or was it your humanity? If this chapter touched you, share it with someone who hides behind logic but needs to rediscover the power of story. Leave a comment about one story from your own life that shaped you, and subscribe, because in the next chapter we will dive into another force that shapes communication, the hidden rhythm of timing, and how knowing when to speak, when not to, can transform every conversation into music. Chapter 7. The rhythm of timing, when silence speaks louder than words. There is a rhythm in every conversation, a pulse that runs beneath the words, and if you listen closely, you can feel it. It is the rise of excitement when someone shares a dream. It is the slow heaviness when someone confesses a pain. It is the electric tension when two people disagree. This rhythm is invisible, but it governs everything. To ignore it is to stumble. To speak out of sync, to break connection. To sense it is to move like a dancer stepping into the beat, knowing when to speak, when to pause, and when to remain silent. Speaking smart is not just about what you say. It is about when you say it. Think about music. A song is not only notes, it is space between notes. Without pauses, there is no melody. Without rhythm, sound becomes noise. Communication works the same way. Too many words too fast overwhelm. Too few words too slow lose attention. But the right word at the right moment, unforgettable. Timing turns ordinary sentences into lightning strikes. It makes a joke hilarious, a truth piercing, a confession healing. The tragedy is that most people ignore rhythm. They rush to fill silence, fearing its weight. They interrupt because they cannot sit in someone else's pause. They answer before listening, fully desperate to prove their presence. But in doing so, they miss the power of timing. Silence is not emptiness. Silence is space. It allows emotions to rise, thoughts to settle, meaning to deepen. Fact: sometimes the smartest thing you can say is nothing at all. Consider an argument between friends. One rushes to defend, words spilling like arrows, each trying to win. The other pauses, breathes, listens. The pause breaks the cycle of escalation. In that silence, emotions cool, perspective widens. Then, when the second friend finally speaks, their words carry the weight of restraint. The message is clearer, calmer, stronger. Timing gave those words power. Or think of a comedian on stage. The joke itself is clever. The pause before the punchline is what makes the audience erupt with laughter. That pause builds anticipation, tension, readiness. Without it, the joke falls flat. Or picture a leader addressing a crowd. After delivering a bold statement, she stops, lets the silence stretch. The audience leans in, breath held. The silence amplifies the message. What she does not say becomes as powerful as what she does. The psychology of timing is rooted in emotional intelligence. When you attune to the rhythm of another person, sense not only their words but their state of being. You notice the hesitation before they answer, the quickening of their breath, the flicker in their eyes. These cues reveal when to press forward, when to slow down, when to wait. If you ignore them, you speak past them. If you honor them, you speak into them. Why do people struggle with timing? Because impatience whispers that silence is failure. Because insecurity shouts that if you are not talking, you are invisible. But real confidence is not in constant speaking. It is in knowing you can hold silence without losing presence. Silence is not weakness. Silence is mastery. It shows you are not enslaved to filling space, that you can trust the moment to unfold. This is why some of the greatest leaders and negotiators are masters of pause. In negotiation, silence unsettles. It forces the other side to reveal more than they intended. In leadership, silence inspires. It invites reflection and creates weight around key moments. In friendship, silence comforts. Says, I am with you without needing words. In romance, silence deepens intimacy, allowing two hearts to sync without sound. But timing is not only about silence, it is also about knowing when to speak up. Too often people miss opportunities because they hesitate. They hold back the compliment that could have lifted someone's spirit. They delay the apology until it is too late. They wait for the right moment that never arrives. Speaking smart means not only pausing when necessary, but daring act when the rhythm calls. Words delayed too long can be as damaging as words rushed. So, how do you master timing? Begin by listening more deeply than you speak. Notice the flow of conversation, the emotional undercurrents. When someone pauses, resist the urge to jump in immediately. Wait, let them finish their thought. Sometimes the most revealing words come after a pause. Practice slowing your own speech. Insert intentional pauses after key points. Allow silence to underline your message. Pay attention to your listener's body language. Are they leaning in, signaling hunger for more, or are they pulling back, needing space? Timing is not a formula. It is a dance. Imagine a mentor advising a young student. If the mentor rushes to give answers, the student becomes dependent. But if the mentor holds silence after a question waiting, the student begins to think, to search, to discover. That silence becomes the seed of growth. Or imagine a lover consoling their partner. If they rush with solutions, they smother. But if they hold silence, offering presence, the partner feels seen, not fixed. In both cases, silence communicates more than words could, yet beware of silence used as a weapon. Some people withdraw into silence not to create space, but to punish. This cold silence is not rhythm. It is control. True timing flows from care, not cruelty. It serves connection, not ego. The difference lies in intention. If your silence is meant to make others feel small, it destroys trust. If your silence is meant to give others space to rise, it builds trust. Here is my personal comment to you. Do not underestimate silence. Do not fear pauses. Do not rush your words as if the world will forget you if you stop speaking. The most magnetic communicators are not those who fill every second with sound, but those who speak with rhythm. They treat conversation as music, where both notes and rests create harmony. When you master timing, you no longer chase attention, you command it. So here is your challenge. In your next conversation, experiment with silence. When you feel the urge to jump in, wait 2 seconds longer. When you make a powerful statement, let it breathe before moving on. When someone shares something vulnerable, resist the instinct to fix it with quick words. Sit with them. Let the silence hold the weight. Notice how the atmosphere changes. If this chapter moved, you share it with someone who fears silence, who hides behind endless chatter, who needs to remember that the right word at the right time is worth more than 1,000 words spoken in haste. Subscribe, because in the next chapter we will dive into another layer of speaking smart. The subtle art of body language and how your movements speak even before your mouth opens. Chapter 8. The silent language. How your body speaks before you do. Long before human beings could form words, they communicated with their bodies. A tilt of the head signaled curiosity. A clenched fist warned of threat. A gentle touch conveyed comfort. Our ancestors survived not by eloquence, but by instinct, reading danger and safety, the smallest of movements. Even now, in a world saturated with words, the body still speaks first. Before you open your mouth, your posture, your gestures, your eyes have already announced your message. To speak smart is to master not only your words, but the silent language that wraps around them. Think of the last time you met someone new. Before they even introduced themselves, you sensed something. Maybe their smile seemed genuine, and you felt safe. Maybe their shoulders hunched, their gaze darted, and you felt unease. You judge not by logic, but by instinct. This is because body language bypasses reason and strikes directly at perception. People may forgive clumsy words, but they rarely forgive a body that feels dishonest. Why does body language hold such power? Because the human brain is designed to scan for signals of trust or threat. This happens in milliseconds long before conscious thought. If your words say, "I am confident," but your body whispers, "I am afraid," people will believe your body. If your words say, "I care," but your eyes avoid theirs, people will believe your avoidance. The body cannot lie as easily as the mouth can. That is why mastering body language is essential for authentic communication. One of the most common struggles people face is inconsistency between verbal and nonverbal communication. They try to sound confident, but cross their arms tightly. They try to appear open, but keep glancing at their phone. They try to inspire, but slump their shoulders in defeat. This inconsistency creates dissonance, and people sense it immediately. The message becomes unclear, and trust evaporates. Speaking smart requires alignment. When your body and your words harmonize, your message lands with undeniable power. Consider a leader addressing a team in crisis. If she stands tall, shoulders back, voice steady, eyes firm, her presence radiates confidence even before her words begin. The team feels anchored. But if she slouches, avoids eye contact, and fidgets with her hands, the same word of encouragement will sound hollow. The body amplifies or diminishes the message. It can turn reassurance into doubt or hope into strength. Or think of a friend consoling another. If he says, "I am here for you," while checking his watch, his words ring false. But if he leans in, softens his gaze, and holds the silence with presence, he communicates more than any sentence could. The body carries empathy where words fall short. This is why the most memorable conversations are rarely remembered for exact phrasing. They are remembered for how someone made us feel, and that feeling often came through body language. The psychology of nonverbal communication reveals that gestures, posture, and eye contact account for more of the meaning in interaction than words themselves. Studies suggest that up to 70% of communication is nonverbal. Whether or not the number is exact, the truth remains your body is always speaking, whether you intend it to or not. The question is whether you are letting it speak unconsciously or intentionally. How can you master the silent language? First, awareness. Pay attention to your own body in daily interactions. Notice your posture. Are you collapsing inward, signaling insecurity, or are you grounded, signaling presence? Notice your gestures. Do they match your message or distract from it? Notice your eye contact. Are you hiding, dominating, or connecting? Awareness is the first step to alignment. Second, practice congruence. Congruence means your body reflects your words. If you say, "I believe in this," let your posture stand tall. If you say, "I am listening," lean slightly forward. Soften your eyes. Nod gently. If you say, "I am confident," let your hands remain open, not hidden in pockets or clenched in fists. Congruence does not mean forcing artificial gestures. It means letting your body reflect the truth of your intention. Third, cultivate presence. Presence is more than posture. It is the energy you carry into a space. Presence is felt in how fully you occupy your body. A person with presence walks into a room and people turn, not because of flashy movements, but because of groundedness. Their body is not restless, not scattered. Their stillness speaks of inner strength. Presence cannot be faked. It is the natural result of self-awareness and self-trust. Think of someone you admire, perhaps a teacher, a mentor, a leader. Likely what impressed you was not only what they said, but how they carried themselves. Their posture, their tone, their gestures each reinforced their message. They did not need to demand respect. Their body invited it. That is the silent language at work, but there is also danger in misunderstanding body language. Some people memorize tricks, maintain eye contact, use open palms, stand tall. But without sincerity, these tricks become performance. People may not consciously detect it, but they feel something off. True body language mastery is not about acting, it is about alignment. When you truly feel confident, your posture naturally rises. When you genuinely care, your eyes naturally soften. Goal is not to mimic gestures, but to embody the emotions behind them. Here is my personal comment to you. Your body is always speaking, even when you are silent, even when you are afraid, even when you wish to hide. Your body is sending messages. Do not ignore this power. Do not let your body betray your intentions. Instead, align it. Let your body tell the same story your words are telling. This is not about pretending, it is about becoming whole. When your body and your words move as one, will not just hear you, they will believe you. So here is your challenge. The next time you prepare for a conversation, do not only think about what you will say. Stand in front of a mirror. Observe your posture, your face, your hands. Ask yourself, do I look like someone who believes my message? Then in the actual conversation, focus on presence more than perfection. Breathe into your body. Ground your feet. Open your chest. Meet eyes with sincerity. Watch how people respond, not only to your words but to your presence. If this chapter stirred something in you, share it with someone who talks much but connects little. Someone who needs to remember that the body is the first language we ever learned, and still the most powerful one we have. And subscribe, because in the next chapter we will step into another layer of speaking smart, the subtle influence of listening, not as a passive act, but as the foundation of every great conversation. Chapter 9. The hidden power of listening. Why silence makes you unforgettable. Most people believe communication is about speaking. They spend hours rehearsing what to say, how to say it, how to sound clever or confident. But the truth is, the most magnetic communicators are not the ones who speak the most. They are the ones who listen the deepest. Listening is not passive. Listening is an act of presence, of generosity, of surrendering your spotlight so someone else can stand in it. Listening is how you make people feel seen, and to feel seen is the deepest hunger of the human heart. Think about the people in your life you love to talk to. Are they the ones who constantly interrupt, who turn every story back to themselves, who finish your sentences? Or are they the ones who lean in, whose eyes stay with yours, whose silence feels like an embrace? We crave listeners because they give us something rare: attention without judgment, presence without agenda. A good listener does not just hear words, they hear meaning. They hear the emotion behind the pause, the pain behind the laughter, the dream behind the hesitation. Why is listening so powerful? Because the world is noisy, everyone is fighting to be heard, but few are willing to hear. In this chaos, a listener becomes a sanctuary. When someone feels heard, their defenses drop, their trust rises, and their bond with you deepens. Listening is not about collecting information. It is about creating connection. People may forget what you said, but they will never forget how you made them feel when you truly listened. The struggle is that most people mistake waiting for listening. They nod, they smile, stay silent, but inside they are preparing their reply, rehearsing their counter-argument, waiting for their turn. This is not listening, it is waiting to speak. True listening requires surrender. It requires you to put aside your hunger to respond and enter fully into the world of the other. It is not easy, but it is transformative. Imagine a friend telling you about a failure. If you rush to comfort them with advice, you may think you are helping, but often you are stealing their space. They did not come for solutions. They came to be understood. Now imagine you simply listen. You nod softly. You let their words spill. You reflect what you hear. That must have been heavy. Suddenly they exhale. The burden lifts. Not because you fixed it, but because you carried it with them. That is the power of listening. The psychology of listening shows that when people feel heard, their brain releases dopamine, creating relief and pleasure. They associate you with safety. This is why therapists, mentors, and trusted friends hold such influence, not because they have all the answers, but because they create the rare experience of being truly listened to. Listening in many ways is more persuasive than speaking. When people feel you understand them, they become open to your influence. Consider a leader in a workplace. One version storms in with solutions, dictating orders, ignoring voices. Employees obey but resent. Another version enters with questions. What do you see? What do you feel is the real challenge? She listens fully without rushing. When she finally speaks, her words land with weight because they are built on trust. Her listening gave her authority more than her title did. Listening also deepens personal relationships. Think of couples. The greatest fights are rarely about the actual issue. They are about the feeling of not being heard. One says, "You do not understand me." The other says, "You never listen." The issue could be small, but the wound of unheardness is enormous. When couples learn to listen, to mirror, to validate, to pause instead of defend, the relationship heals. Listening becomes the bridge back to love. But listening is not only about others. It is also about yourself. How often do you ignore your own inner voice, drowning it in distraction? How often do you silence your intuition, your body's signals, your soul's whispers? Smart speaking begins with smart listening to others. Yes, but also to yourself. If you do not listen within, your words without will ring hollow. So how do you practice deep listening? First, give full presence. Put away the phone. Turn your body toward them. Let your eyes settle. Presence says you matter. Second, quiet the inner chatter. Resist the urge to rehearse your reply. Simply be with their words as they arrive. Third, reflect. Repeat or reframe what you heard, not mechanically, but to show you care. Fourth, listen for what is unsaid. The pause, the sigh, the tremor in the voice. These reveal truths. Words hide. Listening is not just to the tongue, but to the heart. Consider a story. A teacher once asked her class to pair up. One student would speak for 2 minutes, the other would only listen. No comments, no interruptions. At first students panicked. They were so used to interjecting, reacting, controlling. But as the minutes passed, tears flowed. Some said it was the first time they felt truly heard in years. Nothing changed except listening. That was enough. The danger, however, is using listening as a mask. Some pretend to listen, nodding with feigned interest, while their mind drifts. Others weaponize silence, withdrawing to punish instead of understand. True listening cannot be faked. People can feel when your ears are open, but your heart is closed. Listening without sincerity is emptiness. Listening with sincerity is medicine. Here is my personal comment to you. If you want to become unforgettable, learn to listen, not with half your mind, not with impatience, but with the full weight of your presence. Make people feel that in the moment they speak, nothing else matters more. That gift is so rare, It will etch your memory into their soul, and here is the secret. You will grow too. Because the more you listen, the more you learn, the more you expand beyond yourself. Listening is not loss. Listening is expansion. So here is your challenge. In your next conversation, try speaking less. Aim to listen more than you talk. When the urge to interrupt arises, breathe instead. When they pause, do not rush to fill it. Let the silence breathe. Reflect back what you hear. Then watch. Watch how their shoulders relax, how their tone softens, how trust blooms. That is the miracle of listening. If this chapter awakens something in you, share it with someone who needs to be reminded that the greatest power in communication is not the tongue, but the ear. Leave a comment about a time you felt deeply listened to. It may inspire others to offer the same gift. And subscribe, because in the next chapter, we will explore another secret of speaking smart. The magic of questions and how asking the right ones can unlock doors that speeches never could. Chapter 10. The unlocking question, how to open minds and hearts. A question is not a small thing. A question is a key. It can unlock a story hidden for years. It can open a wound someone has been afraid to touch. It can awaken a dream long buried. It can shatter defenses that endless speeches could not break. While most people focus on speaking well, those who speak smart understand that true power lies in asking well. Questions guide conversations like rivers shaping landscapes. They turn monologues into dialogues, strangers into companions, and information into transformation. Think about the last time someone asked you a question that made you pause. Maybe it was simple. Are you truly happy? Maybe it was piercing. Why are you still holding on? Maybe it was tender. What do you need right now? That moment stayed with you because it forced you inward. It invited you to explore, to reflect, to face something you might have ignored. A statement tells, but a question invites. And invitations are far harder to resist than instructions. The tragedy is that most people waste questions. They ask mechanically, "How are you?" without listening for the answer. They ask surface questions that skim across the skin instead of diving into the soul, or they use questions as weapons. Why would you do something so stupid? These do not open hearts. They close them. To ask well, you must ask with curiosity, with care, with courage. A question asked with sincerity can do what no lecture ever could. Why are questions so powerful? Because they shift focus. A statement puts you in the center. Question puts the other person in the center. It tells them you matter. Your thoughts, your feelings, your story matters. This creates connection instantly. The brain also responds differently to questions. A statement may pass by, but a question demands engagement. It sparks neurons to search for answers to create meaning. In other words, questions activate both the heart and the mind. Consider a leader in a company. One version says, "Here is the plan. Here is what you will do." Team obeys but remains passive. Another version asks, "What ideas do you have? What challenges do you see? How would you solve this?" Suddenly, the team leans forward. They engage, they create, they own the mission. The leader has not just spoken, she has drawn out brilliance. That is the difference between authority and influence. Or think of a parent with a child. A parent who constantly tells "do this, do not do that," may control behavior, but stifle growth. But a parent who asks, "What you think will happen if you choose this?" or "What kind of person do you want to be?" awakens reflection. The child begins to think, to own choices, to develop identity. Questions raise thinkers, not followers. The psychology of questioning reveals that open-ended questions, those that cannot be answered with yes or no, are the most powerful. They create space. They invite stories, not statistics. They draw out feelings, not just facts. Did you like it is closed. What did you enjoy most? Opens. Are you okay is closed. What is on your heart right now opens. The shift is subtle but profound, but questions can also be dangerous. A careless question can wound. Why are you still single? Why did you fail? Why can you not be more like these questions? Carry judgment, not curiosity. They shut down rather than open up. To speak smart is to choose questions that invite honesty without shame, growth without humiliation. A good question is like light. It reveals, but it does not burn. So how do you master the art of questioning? Begin with genuine curiosity. Do not ask to control, ask to discover. Let your questions come from wonder, not from agenda. Second, go deeper. Do not stop at surface answers. Follow up gently. Tell me more. What made you feel that way? What happened next? Third, balance courage and care. Sometimes the most powerful question is the one people fear to answer. But if asked with compassion, it can liberate them. Imagine a mentor with a struggling student. If the mentor says, "You need to work harder," student feels judged. But if the mentor asks, "What is standing in your way right now?" the student opens. The walls come down, the real struggle is revealed, and solutions can begin. The mentor did not lecture, he asked, and the question became the doorway to growth. Or picture a friend battling sadness. If you say, "Cheer up, it will be fine," your words fall flat. But if you ask, "What feels heaviest for you today?" suddenly the burden is shared. The friend exhales not because you fixed them, but because you cared enough to ask. That one question became a lifeline. Here is my personal comment to you. Do not underestimate your questions. Every time you ask, you are shaping the direction of someone's thoughts. You are choosing whether to push them deeper into shame or lift them higher into possibility. Speak smart by asking smart. Ask questions that awaken, that heal, that expand. And remember, sometimes the bravest question you can ask is the one you fear the answer to. So here is your challenge. In your next conversation, resist the urge to dominate with statements. Instead, ask 3 questions. Ask not out of habit, but out of curiosity. Ask not to fill silence, but to open hearts. Then stay quiet and listen fully. Watch how the energy shifts, how people reveal themselves, how connection blooms. That is the magic of questioning. If this chapter sparked something in you, share it with someone who needs to remember that the smartest communicators are not those with all the answers, but those with the right questions. And subscribe, because in the next chapter, we will explore another layer of social intelligence, the subtle art of humor. How laughter can disarm, connect, and make your words unforgettable. Chapter 11. The subtle art of humor. How laughter connects faster than words. There is a moment in every conversation where the tension rises, where silence feels heavy, where hearts are cautious and guarded, and then someone cracks a smile, tells a light story, or makes a gentle joke, and everything changes. Shoulders relax, eyes brighten, walls collapse. In that instant, laughter becomes the shortest distance between two souls. Humor, when used with intelligence and care, is one of the greatest tools of social connection. It is not about being a comedian. It is about using light to break the darkness, using play to create trust, using joy to draw people closer. Think about the people you love being around. Often they are not the ones with endless wisdom or flawless speech. They are the ones who make you feel lighter, who turn ordinary moments into small celebrations. Humor is magnetic. It signals safety. It tells the brain, you can relax here. In fact, psychologists have shown that laughter reduces cortisol, the stress hormone, and increases oxytocin, the bonding hormone. In other words, when you make someone laugh, Their body literally trusts you more. Humor is not entertainment, it is connection chemistry. Yet, many people fear humor in serious conversations, believing it will make them look foolish or disrespectful. But humor is not about telling jokes. It is about finding the human thread. It is about noticing the small ironies, the playful contrasts, the shared absurdities of life. Humor says, "We are in this together." When a leader uses humor wisely, she dissolves fear and inspires loyalty. When a friend uses humor gently, he soothes pain and restores hope. Humor done right is never cruel. It is never at the expense of dignity. It is laughter with not laughter at. But why do so many struggle with humor? The truth is, they confuse it with performance. They think humor means memorizing punchlines or forcing laughs. That is not humor. That is insecurity wearing a mask. Real humor flows from presence, from awareness, from daring to be human. It is noticing the small stumble and laughing at yourself before anyone else does. It is catching the awkward pause and turning it into a shared smile instead of a moment of shame. Humor is authenticity turned playful. Consider a public speaker. Some deliver endless facts, perfect slides, flawless data. The audience nods politely, but forgets them the moment they leave. Others, in the midst of their speech, make a self-deprecating remark, laugh at the technology failing, or share a funny memory. The audience roars. Suddenly the speaker is no longer a lecturer, but a person. Because they laughed with him, they will remember him. Humor does not erase seriousness. It amplifies impact. Or imagine a difficult workplace meeting. Tension is high, conflict sharp, voices rise. Then someone at just the right moment says with a smile, "Well, at least we all agree this coffee is terrible." Laughter breaks the fight. It does not solve the problem, but it softens the edges, makes solutions possible. Humor cannot replace truth, but it can pave the way for truth to be heard. Humor is also powerful in personal relationships. Couples who laugh together endure longer. Families who create playful rituals carry resilience through hardship. Friends who joke even in pain find healing faster, because laughter is not just sound, it is survival. It reminds us that even in the darkest night, there is still a spark of light. Shared laughter is shared hope. The danger of humor, however, is misuse. Sarcasm disguised as humor can cut deeper than knives. Jokes that belittle, mock, or target wounds create scars, not smiles. Humor used without empathy is cruelty. To speak smart is to wield humor with care. Ask yourself, does this laugh unite us or divide us? Does it lift or crush? Does it invite or exclude? The answer will tell you whether your humor is wisdom or weapon. The psychology of humor shows that we laugh not just at jokes but at surprise. Laughter often arises from the unexpected twist, the playful perspective shift. This means you do not need to be a comedian to be funny. You only need to be attentive. When you notice what others overlook, when you highlight life's contradictions, you invite laughter naturally. And when you laugh at yourself, your mistakes, your quirks, your human flaws, you give others permission to do the same. That permission is a gift. Here is a simple practice in your next conversation. Allow yourself to be playful, not forced, not fake, but free. If you stumble over a word, laugh. If you spill water, joke about being clumsy. If silence grows heavy, smile and say what everyone is thinking but too afraid to say. Watch how the energy shifts. Humor does not demand perfection. It thrives in imperfection. I once met a man who had the heaviest job, delivering bad news as a doctor. He told me that what saved his patients from despair was not false hope, but gentle humor. He would say, "We'll be honest with you, but I promise to always find something to smile about together." His patients trusted him because he was real. He carried truth in one hand and laughter in the other, and together they gave his words unbearable weight and unbearable lightness at the same time. Here is my personal comment to you. If you want to become unforgettable in conversations, learn to laugh, not just at others, but with them and especially at yourself. Do not strive to be the funniest person in the room. Strive to be the warmest, the most human, the one who makes people feel safe enough to smile. That is the essence of smart speaking. It is not performance, it is presence infused with play. So, here is your challenge. In the coming week, seek 3 moments to bring lightness into conversations, not with forced jokes, but with authenticity. Notice something funny in the ordinary. Share a memory that makes you laugh. Allow others to laugh at your imperfections without shame. Then reflect. Did it deepen connection? It softened tension? Did it create joy? You will see that humor is not decoration in communication. It is glue. If this chapter resonated, share it with someone who needs a little more laughter in their relationships, in their leadership, in their life, and subscribe, because in the next chapter, we will explore another essential skill of social intelligence, the art of storytelling. How to turn your words into living experiences that others can feel, remember, and carry with them. Chapter 12. The timeless art of storytelling. How to make your words unforgettable. Long before there were books, before there were microphones, before there was even paper, there were stories told around firelight. A mother calming her child with a tale, a leader stirring courage with a legend, a traveler recounting wonders from faraway lands. Stories have always been the heartbeat of human connection. Facts may instruct, but stories transform. They bypass the cold walls of logic and enter through the warm door of imagination. If humor is the spark that opens hearts, storytelling is the flame that keeps them burning. Why do stories matter so deeply? Because the human brain is wired for narrative. Neuroscientists have discovered that when we hear facts, only the language centers of the brain activate, but when we hear a story, something miraculous happens. Multiple regions of the brain light up. If someone tells you about running through a forest, your sensory brain feels the trees. Your motor brain imagines the movement. Your emotional brain tastes the adrenaline. A story is not heard. It is lived. That is why stories stay long after facts fade. Think of the speeches you remember. Were they lists of data or were they woven with stories? Martin Luther King Jr. did not simply say racial equality is important. He said, "I have a dream," and painted vivid pictures of little black boys and girls joining hands with little white boys and girls. That story lived in hearts. Steve Jobs did not launch the iPhone with a spreadsheet of features. He told the story of holding the internet in your pocket. People did not just buy a phone. They bought into a story. But storytelling is not only for great leaders, it is for every conversation you have. When a friend asks how you are, you could say busy. That ends the dialogue. Or you could tell a small story. Yesterday I was juggling emails and suddenly my child walked in with a drawing that said, "For the best parent in the world." In that moment, I realized I was rushing so much, I almost missed what mattered. That story connects. It reveals your humanity. It invites them to reflect on their own. So why do many people struggle with storytelling? Because they confuse it with performance. They believe a story must be grand, dramatic, perfect. In truth, the best stories are simple and real. They are moments of truth, not rehearsed plays. The stranger who helped you when you were lost, the mistake that taught you humility, the unexpected kindness that restored your faith. These are not epic tales, but they are unforgettable because they carry emotional truth. There is also a psychological reason. Stories work. Humans are wired to seek meaning, not just information. A fact says this happened. A story says here is why it matters. Stories give context, emotion, and purpose. They allow people to see themselves in your words. When you tell a story of struggle, others remember their own battles. When you tell a story of triumph, others taste their own victories. Storytelling is not about your life. It is about the mirror it provides for theirs. Consider a leader in a team meeting. One version says we need to work harder. The team nods with half interest. Another version says, last year, I watched one of you stay in the office until midnight to fix a project that had fallen apart. That dedication saved us all. That is the spirit I want us to bring again. Suddenly, the room shifts. The team does not just hear in order. They feel a vision. The story gave the command a heartbeat. Or think of a teacher explaining history. She could recite dates and battles. Or she could say, imagine being a 19-year-old soldier on that field, hearing the thunder of cannons, clutching a letter from your mother in your pocket. Now the students are no longer memorizing. They are imagining, they are feeling. That is the difference between knowledge and wisdom. But stories can also be dangerous if told carelessly. A story that humiliates someone, that manipulates emotions, or that glorifies lies damages trust. To speak smart is to tell stories that lift, not crush, that reveal, not distort, that connect, not divide. Every story carries responsibility. You are not just entertaining, you are shaping hearts. So, how do you master the art of storytelling? Begin with observation. Every day is filled with stories if you pay attention. The smile of a stranger, the failure that taught you more than success, the quiet courage of someone unnoticed. Collect these moments. Second, find the meaning. Do not just tell what happened. Tell why it matters. Third, keep it simple. A story does not need 10 details to be powerful. A single vivid image can stay forever. Finally, embody it. Tell with your voice, your eyes, your presence. Let the listener feel that you are not just telling a story, you are reliving it. One of the greatest lessons I learned came from an elderly man I once interviewed. He had lived through wars, loss, and hardship. I asked him, "How did you survive?" He smiled and said, "By remembering the stories of my mother. She told me that no night lasts forever, and no winter refuses spring." That was it. A simple story from a mother to a son, carried through decades, became a light through the darkest tunnels. Stories are not entertainment. They are lifelines. Here is my personal comment to you. Do not underestimate your stories. You may believe your life is ordinary, that nothing worth telling has happened, but someone out there needs to hear the exact story you carry. Your story of resilience might save someone from despair. Your story, failure, might free someone from shame. Your story of love might remind someone of hope. Speaking smart is not about hiding your story. It is about daring to share it with honesty and meaning. So here is your challenge. In your next conversation, resist the urge to give only facts. Instead, offer a story. Share a moment, a memory, an image that reveals truth. Watch how the person leans closer, how their eyes soften, how the conversation deepens. Then reflect. Did the story create connection? Did it bring meaning? Did it turn your words into something unforgettable? If this chapter touched you, share it with someone who needs to be reminded that their story matters. Leave a comment about a story in your life that still carries power. It may inspire others to share theirs, and subscribe, because in the next chapter, we will explore a powerful shift, the mindset reset, where we step back to challenge our own patterns, clarify our standards, and prepare to embody everything we have learned. Chapter 13, the mindset reset. Daring to see yourself clearly. There comes a moment in every journey where learning is no longer enough. You can consume books, listen to mentors, collect wisdom like seashells on a shore. But unless you stop, look inward, and reset your mindset, nothing truly changes. This chapter is that moment. It is not about more techniques or more clever insights. It is about holding up a mirror, asking hard questions, and deciding who you want to become. Because communication is not only about skills, it is about identity. The way you speak is not separate from the way you see yourself. To transform your conversations, you must first transform your vision of you. Most people speak from fear without even realizing it. They fear rejection, so they hold back. They fear judgment, so they overcompensate. They fear silence, so they fill it with noise. These fears shape their words more than their intentions do, and then they wonder why their conversations feel hollow. The truth is simple but hard. If you want to speak with power, you must free yourself from the prison of fear. You must reset your mindset from survival to presence, from performance to authenticity. But how do you do that? It begins with reflection. Ask yourself, what stories am I telling myself about my voice? Do I believe I am worth listening to? Do I think my words matter? Because if deep inside you believe your voice is small, your words will always carry that shadow, no matter how polished they sound. You must dare to face the beliefs that sabotage you. Perhaps a teacher once silenced you. Perhaps a parent once mocked you. Perhaps failure once convinced you that you should stay quiet. These moments may have written scripts in your mind, but here is the truth. You can rewrite the script. The mindset reset requires 3 shifts. First, from fear to courage. Courage does not mean you never feel afraid. It means you speak anyway. Rooted in your values, anchored in your worth. Second, from performance to authenticity. Stop trying to sound smart. Start trying to sound real. People trust real more than they trust perfect. Third, from self-focus to other focus. Stop obsessing over how you appear. Start caring about how others feel when they are with you. When your focus shifts outward, your fear dissolves. Consider the story of a young woman I once coached. She was brilliant but silent in meetings. When I asked why, she said, "I am terrified of sounding stupid." I challenged her. What if your silence is robbing the room of the insight only you can give? That reframing shifted her. She realized her silence was humility. It was fear disguised as safety. Slowly she began speaking, not to prove herself, but to serve others with her perspective. The change was not in her words, it was in her mindset. The psychology behind this is powerful. Our words flow from our self-image. If you see yourself as inadequate, your words carry hesitation. If you see yourself as valuable, your words carry conviction. Social intelligence is not only about reading others, it is about reading yourself honestly. It is about asking, am I showing up as the person I truly want to be? Am I hiding behind fear, or am I living in alignment with my deepest truth? These questions sting, but they are necessary. And here is where the reset becomes real. You must define your standards. Who do you want to be in every conversation? Do you want to be the one who lifts or the one who drains? Do you want to be the one who hides or the one who shows up fully? Do you want to be the one who only speaks or the one who listens and transforms? You cannot drift into these identities. You must decide. Every conversation is practice. Every word is shaping your future. The reset is choosing with intention the identity you will embody. Imagine you are at a crossroads. One path is the old you, the hesitant speaker, the over-inker, the performer, the one trapped by fear. The other path is the reset you, the one who speaks with courage, authenticity, and care. The path you choose is not about one grand moment. It is about 1,000 small choices. Choosing to listen deeply instead of waiting to talk. Choosing to ask a real question instead of hiding behind small talk. Choosing to share your story instead of pretending you have none. That is the reset in action. But beware, resetting your mindset is not a one-time event. It is a daily practice. Fear will return. Doubt will whisper. Shame will try to creep back in. You will stumble, but each stumble is not failure. It is a reminder to reset again, to pause, breathe, and return to your chosen standards. Transformation is not a single explosion. It is the steady flame of daily resets. Here is my personal comment to you. If you have made it this far, you are not here by accident. Something inside you is tired of drifting. Something inside you longs to reset, to stop being a shadow in conversations, and start being a presence that others feel deeply. This chapter is your turning point, if you let it be. Do not just nod and move on. Stop now. Write down the 3 standards you want to live by in every conversation. For example, I will speak with courage, will listen with presence, I will bring lightness. Make them your then live them. So here is your challenge tonight. Before you sleep, look into a mirror, ask yourself honestly, am I speaking from fear or am I speaking from truth? Let the answer sting if it must. Then declare aloud the identity you choose. I am a voice of courage. I am a presence of connection. I am a vessel of authenticity. Say it until your soul believes it. This is not about pretending. This is about remembering who you truly are beneath the fear. This reset moved. You share it with someone else who needs to remember their voice matters. Write in the comments the 1 standard you are committing to in your conversations. Inspire others by showing your decision, and subscribe, because the final chapter is coming. A call to embodiment, where we will not just think about change, but step into it fully, carrying this transformation into every word, every relationship, every moment of life. Chapter 14. The final call. Speak as if your life depends. There is a moment in every journey when you can no longer stand at the edge, watching, hesitating, waiting for the perfect time. That moment is now. You have listened. You have reflected. You have gathered wisdom. But wisdom without embodiment is wasted breath. The world does not change because you read new words. It changes because you decide to live them. This final chapter is not about learning. It is about choosing. It is about crossing the threshold into a life where every word you speak carries weight, where every conversation becomes sacred ground, where your voice is no longer timid, no longer hidden, no longer chained by fear. You may not realize this, but the way you speak is shaping your destiny. Each word you choose is a seed. Some seeds grow into trust, love, and opportunity. Others grow into conflict, regret, and distance. Every conversation is soil. You cannot control how people will respond, but you can control what you plant. And here is the truth. Your words are not small. They ripple. A kind sentence can heal a heart for years. A careless phrase can scar a soul for decades. You cannot afford to treat your words lightly. To speak smart is to speak as if your life and someone else's life depends on it. Think of this. Somewhere someone you love is waiting for your words of courage, but you have been silent. Somewhere someone struggling is waiting for your words of hope, but you have withheld. Somewhere someone is lost in shame, waiting for your story of struggle and redemption, but you have hidden it out of fear. If your voice is the very thing they need to hear to keep going, what if your silence is not humility, but betrayal of the gift you carry? The greatest tragedy is not that people speak foolishly. The greatest tragedy is that they never speak at all. They live as spectators watching life unfold, rehearsing the words they will say someday, until someday runs out. Do not let that be you. Do not let your story die unspoken. Do not let fear rob the world of your truth. You have something to say. Your life has given you scars, lessons, laughter, wisdom. To bury it is to waste it. To speak it is to multiply it. But speaking smart is not about shouting louder. It is about speaking truer. It is not about dazzling people with vocabulary. It is about piercing them with authenticity. It is not about being perfect. It is about being present. When you strip away performance, when you stop rehearsing who you think you should be, and instead embody who you truly are, Your words carry an energy that cannot be ignored. People do not remember polished masks. They remember raw truth. This is the call. Stop waiting. Stop delaying. Stop telling yourself you are not ready. You are ready the moment you decide to show up as yourself. Do not wait for confidence. It grows only when you act. Do not wait for approval. Most people are too busy worrying about themselves to judge you anyway. Do not wait for the perfect words. Speak from your heart, and perfection will not matter. Courage is messy. Authenticity is imperfect. That is why it is powerful. I want you to imagine this, your last day on earth. You look back at your life. Do you want to remember silence, hesitation, missed chances to connect? Or do you want to remember voices raised in courage, stories shared in love, laughter echoing through relationships, words that became bridges instead of walls? The choice is yours, and it begins now, not later. The psychology of embodiment tells us that action rewires identity. If you wait until you feel ready, you will wait forever. But if you act as the person you want to be, speaking courage, you feel afraid, telling stories, when you feel ordinary, listening deeply, when you feel distracted, you become that person. Identity is not discovered. It is created through repeated choices. Every time you speak from truth, you carve a new self into being. So here is the vow I invite you to make from this day forward. I will not hide my voice. I will speak with courage, not fear. I will listen with presence, not distraction. I will connect with authenticity, not performance. I will use humor to heal stories, to inspire, and questions to unlock hearts. My words will no longer be wasted breath. They will be bridges. They will be light. They will be fire. This is who I choose to be. Here is my personal comment to you. If you are still here reading these final words, it means something inside you refuses to settle for a half-lived life. You are ready. Do not let this be just another book you finish and forget. Let this be the moment you decide. Speak to someone today with honesty. Tell the truth you have been holding back. Ask the question you have been afraid to ask. Share the story you thought no one wanted to hear. Choose courage even if your voice shakes, because the only voice that does not matter is the one never spoken. So here is your final challenge right now. Think of one person who needs your words. It could be a loved one, a colleague, even yourself. Then, before the sun sets, speak to them. Say what you have been holding back. Let your words be imperfect, but let them be real. Do not wait. Do not delay. Life is too short and voices too precious to remain silent. If these words ignited something in you, share them. Share them widely. Share them with those you love, with those you lead, with those who need hope. Let your voice echo beyond this page, into hearts and lives, waiting for the courage only you can give. This is your final call. Speak smart, speak true. Speak now. Chapter 15. Epilogue. Stepping into your new life of connection, close your eyes for a moment and imagine the world you are about to enter. It is not a different city or distant country. It is the same streets you walk every day, the same offices you sit in, the same people you pass by, yet everything feels new. Why? Because you are new. The timid voice that once lived in your chest has grown steady. The anxious whisper that said, "Stay quiet," has faded. In its place is a grounded presence that does not need to shout to be heard. You carry yourself differently, and people feel it. Conversations that once drained you now energize you. Rooms that once intimidated you now welcome you. This is the world you are stepping into, not tomorrow, but today. Imagine walking into a gathering where once you would have hovered at the edge, scrolling on your phone, pretending to be busy. Now you walk in with your shoulders back, eyes soft but confident, scanning the room, not for danger, but for connection. You see a stranger, and instead of thinking, "What if they do not like me?" you think, "What gift of presents can I give them?" You walk over, you smile, you ask a question, makes their eyes light up. They walk away thinking there was something different about that person. That difference is you living out the intelligence of the heart. Imagine speaking in a meeting where once your thoughts would have tangled into knots. Now you breathe, you center yourself, and you speak not to impress, but to contribute. Your words land clearly. People nod, some even write down what you say. You notice it not with pride, but with gratitude. You realize your ideas are not only valid, they are necessary. And the old fear of being judged, it no longer owns you. You have learned that silence born from fear is not humility, but theft. And you refuse to steal from the world the truth only you can give. Imagine sitting with a loved one who once felt distant from you. This time, instead of half listening, you are fully there. You notice the tremor in their voice, the hesitation in their words, the emotion behind their eyes. You do not rush to fix or advise. You simply listen deeply, wholly. They feel seen, and their shoulders relax. Later they tell you, "You are the only one who really understands me." And you realize that is the true power of speaking smart. It is not only in words spoken, but in presence offered. This new life is not about becoming someone else. It is about stripping away the masks you wore, the fear that bound you, the hesitation that muted you. It is about returning to your truest self, the self that has always been capable of courage, authenticity, and connection. That self was buried under years of doubt, but now it breathes again. This book has not given you a new voice. It has uncovered the one you had all along. But here is the truth. This transformation is not guaranteed. It requires daily choosing. The old patterns will tempt you back. Fear will whisper, "Stay silent." Ego will whisper, "Perform." But you will know better now. You have seen what is possible. You have felt the difference. You have tasted the freedom of living with presence and power. The choice is yours to drift back into the old life, to step boldly into the new. I invite you to claim it fully. Do not treat these words as inspiration to be forgotten tomorrow. Treat them as a vow. Promise yourself that you will no longer waste conversations. Promise yourself that you will no longer let fear rob you of connection. Promise yourself that you will show up fully, whether in the boardroom, the living room, or the grocery store, because every conversation matters, every voice matters, and yours matters most of all. Now let us take one last step together. Imagine yourself 5 years from today. You are living fully in this new identity. You walk into opportunities and doors open, because people trust your presence. You stand on stages, not necessarily grand ones, but moments where your voice is heard and you do not shrink. You sit with friends and family who feel deeply loved because you not only spoke, you listened. You walk through life knowing you gave your voice freely, courageously, authentically. When you look back, you feel no regret, only gratitude that you chose to live out loud. That is the future waiting for you if you choose it. Here is my personal closing to you. If you are reading this, it is because something inside you has been awakened. Do not let it fall asleep again. Take this as a charge, as a sacred responsibility. Speak when silence would be easier. Listen when talking would be safer. Love when cynicism would be easier. Be the one who lifts the room, who sees the unseen, who dares to tell the truth. The world has enough noise. What it needs is your authentic voice. And so this book ends, but your story begins. You are the author of every conversation you enter, the artist of every connection you create. Go now, not as a spectator, but as a speaker of truth, a listener of hearts, a builder of bridges. Speak smart, speak true. Speak now. If you've made it to this point, you've probably realized what I have. You're not missing anything. You're not broken. You're not late. You already have enough to begin. The difference now is, will you honor what you carry? Will you stop waiting